Okay, so today is a story time episode. I have three stories for you, not one, but three. And the reason I'm grouping them together is because although these experiences felt completely different in the moment as I was living them, looking back on them now, they all reveal the exact same theme. They are all about men that just couldn't handle rejection. And what's fascinating is that they weren't even the same type of guy. One was immature, one was nice, and one was just deeply aggressive. But the reaction was weirdly identical. Okay, so let's get into it. So, story number one. Let me set the scene for you. When I first graduated from college, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do career wise. I didn't have a job lined up yet, so I moved back home with my mom and I started working through a temp agency while I figured things out. And honestly, the gigs were kind of all over the place. Sometimes it was cool short term stuff like working at an art festival for a few days, and other times it was more random office or admin type roles that lasted like a couple of months. At some point, I got staffed at this office making sales calls. And immediately there was one guy there who caught my attention. So let's call him Ian. Over the 3 months I worked there, I learned that Ian was 2 years older than me. He was pretty popular around the office. And most importantly, he was single. We had talked here and there during lunch breaks and around the office. He seemed nice, and I definitely got the sense that he was also interested in me. So when my temp contract was coming to an end, I decided to take a leap of faith and give him my number. And in my head, this felt very low stakes. Best case scenario, he texts me, he asks me out, and maybe we go on a date. Worst case scenario, he never reaches out. And honestly, who cares? I was leaving that job anyway, but I was wrong. What actually happened was way worse. So yes, Ian did end up reaching out. We talked on the phone a bit, we went out to dinner, and honestly, the date was good. He was conversational, he insisted on paying, and afterwards he texted me saying he had a really nice time and he wanted to see me again. And over the next few weeks, we hung out a handful of times. Nothing super serious, just getting to know each other. At one point, he and his roommates even hosted a pregame at their apartment that I went to with some of my girlfriends. Everything felt very normal, very chill. Then one weekend, Ian asked me to get brunch in his neighborhood. He told me there was this cute restaurant a block from his apartment that didn't take reservations. So the plan was for me to meet him at his place and then we would just walk over together. And for context, this was during one of those brutal Chicago winters where it had basically been snowing nonstop for weeks. Everyone was wearing these giant coats and scarves and boots, the full winter survival outfit. So when I got to his apartment, I left some of my winter gear there before we walked over, because the restaurant was literally 2 minutes away, and I didn't feel like dragging all of it with me. So we got to the restaurant, and because it's packed, they tell us to wait at the bar until a table opens up. We're standing there, we're talking, we're having a genuinely good time. And at one point, I catch a glimpse of myself in this little mirror behind the bar and realize I have full on hat hair. So I throw my hair up into a ponytail. And Ian looks at me and he goes, "You should wear your hair up more often. It looks really good." And in my head, I'm like, "Aw, like that's actually really sweet." He noticed I was kind of self-conscious. So anyway, they call our name and we get seated. The restaurant is loud, it's busy, it's one of those like super cozy, trendy brunch spots. They have lemon ricotta pancakes, Nutella beignets, fresh juice, the whole thing. We order. The conversation is flowing. The food arrives. I think it's all going well. And then at one point, I casually ask him, "So, are you more of a coffee or a tea person in the morning?" And nothing. No response. So I repeat the question because the restaurant is loud and I assume he just didn't hear me. Still nothing. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, it's even louder than I realized. Maybe he's chewing. Maybe he just like needs a second. So I ask again, louder this time. Like I'm practically yelling across the table. "Do you usually prefer coffee or tea in the morning?" And I can literally see people at nearby tables like glance over at me. Still nothing. He's just sitting there, eating his breakfast, looking down at his plate. And I'm sitting there like, okay, this is really weird. But I also genuinely don't know what to do at this point. So we're just sitting there eating in silence. So after literally like 15 minutes of silence and him actively avoiding eye contact with me, I finally ask him, is something wrong?" And in this super sour, begrudging tone, he goes, "Earlier, I complimented your hair when you put it in a ponytail, and then you took it down." I'm sorry, what? I'm literally sitting there, dumbfounded. And yes, technically I had taken my hair down while we were eating, but only because my head was starting to hurt from, like having my hair pulled back. But had this man seriously internalized that action as some kind of like personal rejection? So I'm like, "Ian, I genuinely don't understand." And he goes, "I told you your hair looked good up, and then you immediately decided to take it down. That is disrespectful to me." Wild. Like at this point, I am so turned off and I am so uncomfortable that I immediately decide I want to leave. And then I realize my winter gear is still at his apartment. So I'm like, "Hey, I'd actually like to head out. Can we ask for the check?" And he goes, "I'm planning on ordering more coffee," which honestly made the whole thing feel even more hostile. So I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm uncomfortable and I want to leave. I left my stuff at your apartment." And he literally just slides his keys across the table and goes, "I'm not done eating. You should go collect your stuff." Again, very weird energy, but fine. So I walk back to his apartment alone. I climb the stairs to his walk up and I start looking around for my stuff. It's not in the living room, so I'm like, okay, maybe it's in his bedroom. The bedroom door is a little bit open and I can see my hat and scarf in a pile on the floor near the bed. So I bend down to grab everything. And that's when I notice there's a giant rope coiled underneath his bed, like a thick manila rope, a concerning rope. And immediately I'm like, why does this man have a rope under his bed? We live in Chicago. He's never once mentioned hiking or climbing or sailing or literally anything that can be rope adjacent. Okay, so now the vibes are becoming deeply unsettling. Then I notice that the door to his walk-in closet is cracked open. And at this point, I'm already so weirded out that I'm like, why not look? So I open the closet door fully, and there is a massive, life-sized poster of Trump plastered on the inside of the closet, which honestly was like, it was somehow both surprising and completely unsurprising at the same time. Cool. So now I'm trudging back through the snow to the restaurant. I'm feeling some sort of way. I get back to his table and he's still sitting there, absolutely scowling. This man is scowling. I hand him his keys back and I go, "Why do you have a rope under your bed?" And in this weirdly hostile, menacing tone, he goes, "Not that I have to tell you, but it's there in case there's a fire and I need to climb out the bedroom window." Like, sir, I'm not so sure about this answer. At this point, I Ubered home because emotionally, I had definitely earned it. I was absolutely not taking the train home in the snow after that experience. And obviously, I never spoke to him again. But unfortunately, the story continues. A few months later, I'm getting drinks with some girls in Chicago, and I tell them this whole story. And one of the girls goes, "Wait, I think I went on a date with the same guy." Apparently, he had taken her to this Mexican restaurant downtown. And midway through dinner, he got up to go to the bathroom and then just never came back. 20 minutes pass, but his coat and phone are still on the table. So she goes looking for him. The restaurant has those like single stall bathrooms, one toilet, one sink, fully enclosed rooms. One bathroom is empty, the other is locked. She knocks on the bathroom door, and eventually the door opens, and he's standing there, barefoot, holding his shoes and his socks. Why? Like, just why? I don't know. She didn't know either. She immediately ended the date and never saw him again. And yes, it was the same guy. So, years later, after I had already moved to New York, I went back home to visit my mom. I'm walking down the street one day, and I spot Ian in the distance. And he spots me. And this man literally crosses the street and hides behind a bush. And looking back on it now, I think what unsettled me the most about that experience wasn't even like the rope or the closet or hiding in the bush, which, trust me, they were all objectively bizarre. It was how quickly such a small thing became personal to him and escalated into a tantrum. Like, I took my hair out of a ponytail because my head hurt. That's it. But in his mind, it became this statement about him. Like a tiny decision about my own body translated into rejection and disrespect. And I think that's something I've started noticing more as I've gotten older. Some people don't experience rejection as neutral information. They experience it as humiliation or shame. And instead of working on their own issues or maturely communicating, they literally throw a tantrum. So, moving on to story number 2. We've all heard the phrase, "nice guys finish last." And honestly, I've always found that phrase kind of interesting because, in my experience, men who heavily identify as nice guys are often not actually that nice. And I think part of the issue is that people confuse being nice with being kind when they're actually really not the same thing at all. Like, being nice is more about being pleasant and agreeable and following social etiquette, so people view you positively. But kindness feels deeper than that. Kindness comes from empathy, from genuinely caring about other people, not just wanting to be perceived well. And I think that distinction is really important for this story. So, anyway, when I was in high school, I had a pretty big social circle. Naturally, there were some people I was very close with and I hung out with, like one-on-one all the time. And then there were others I mostly just saw in group settings. Not because I disliked them. You just can't realistically be close friends with everyone. And one of those people was Nate. Over the 3 years I knew him in high school, I think we had exchanged maybe five total conversations. So after graduation, we naturally just didn't really stay in touch. But then, after college, when I had temporarily moved back home with my mom, I ran into Nate again at a gathering at someone's house. And honestly, it did feel comforting seeing someone from my past that I had always associated with being nice and friendly and normal. He looked exactly the same. Skater vibes, super chill guy, he smoked weed sometimes, you know the type. And we started hanging out here and there. Nothing crazy. Sometimes coffee, sometimes group hangouts with mutual friends, stuff like that. So this goes on for a few months. And then one night, we're at a party, and he gets a little too drunk. At some point, he tells me he's been sad because during the time that we weren't really in touch, like while I was away at college and everything, he had been in a long-term relationship, and then she ended up calling it off. I had no idea that any of this had happened, and honestly, I felt really bad for him. So I tried, asking him a few questions just to, show that I cared. Like, what happened? Did he want to talk about it? How is he feeling now? But every time that I asked, he kind of just changed the subject. And I'm like, all right, it's a touchy subject. He's drunk. That's very understandable. So anyway, the night goes on, the party starts winding down, and Nate is clearly way too drunk to drive home. So I order him an Uber, and while I'm helping him into the car, he keeps mumbling, "I really like you," like multiple times. At the time, I didn't think much of it because he was drunk. But later, I started reflecting on it and realized that if there were feelings there on some level, I should probably address it. Because I knew very clearly that I did not have any romantic feelings for him. And honestly, I wasn't even in a place where I wanted to date anyone at all. So a couple weeks later, we ended up getting smoothies, and I brought it up as gently as possible because my intention was not to embarrass him or reject him in any dramatic way. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. So I'm like, "Hey, did you get home okay after the party? You seemed pretty drunk and maybe a little sad talking about your engagement." And he's like, "Yeah, thanks for getting me the Uber. I honestly don't remember the night super clearly. And I think I was just in my feelings." And I'm like, "Yeah, totally. It happens. I just wanted to bring it up. Because at one point you mentioned that you liked me, and immediately he cuts me off and he goes, 'Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I do not remember saying that.'" And I'm like, no, it's okay. Maybe I even misheard you because it was loud and I had a couple drinks too. But I just wanted to say that I really value our friendship and I'm not looking for anything romantic with you or honestly with anyone right now. So I didn't want this to be a gray area. I wanted to tell you where I stand. And he immediately goes, "No, I totally understand. I'm not into you like that, and I respect you a lot." Then the conversation kind of moved on naturally. He opened up a little more about his engagement, and after that, everything honestly seemed pretty normal. So fast forward to 5 months later, Nate texts me on a Saturday morning asking if I want to hang out. And I tell him that I'm honestly kind of busy and need to run errands. I had returns to make at the mall. I needed to stop at the post office. Just boring stuff. And he's like, I'm super bored. Can I tag along? I'll drive. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So he picks me up. We run errands for a couple of hours. We grab coffee to go. Everything feels completely casual and normal. Then he drops me back off at my mom's house. My mom's house has a little driveway in the front, and our street gets kind of busy sometimes. So he pulls into the driveway to let me out. And I get out of the car and start walking to the front door. But I'm taking my time. I pick up the newspaper. I'm fumbling with my keys, moving branches off the walkway, just random little things. And at some point, I notice his car is still sitting in the driveway. And at first, I'm like, okay, maybe he's answering a text, setting up directions, whatever. But something in my gut immediately feels off. So I glance back towards the driver's seat to see what he's doing, and he's literally just staring at me. Like fully staring at me. We make eye contact, and the energy instantly feels very uncomfortable. Then he suddenly gets out of his car. He leaves the driver's side door open. The engine is still running, and he starts speed walking directly towards me like he's on this mission. And he gets right in front of me and goes, Dina, I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you since high school. And immediately in my head, I'm like, fuck. We already talked about this. Then he goes, I know you said you don't want to date anyone right now, and you're not interested in me romantically, but I think you should give it a shot anyway. And when I tell you, I instantly felt so uncomfortable. I was like, listen, I thought we already had this conversation. My feelings haven't changed. And before I can even finish my sentence, he gets visibly angry and cuts me off. And he goes, you clearly don't understand how relationships work. This isn't like the movies. You can learn to love someone over time. So maybe right now you don't feel it, but eventually you could fall in love with me too if you just give it a chance. And at this point, I'm not just uncomfortable anymore. I'm completely turned off. Because now it's feeling less like he cares about my feelings and more like he's trying to negotiate his way around them. Like my answer is just an obstacle that he needs to overcome. So I tell him, that's not the kind of relationship I want for myself. If I ever do date someone in the future, I don't want it to feel forced. And this is the moment he completely loses it. He literally looks up at the sky and yells, Tina, I love you. Then he looks at me and goes, for years, I've been pretending to be your friend. I've had to put in so much effort pretending to listen to all your stupid stories. And for what? And then he storms off, gets back into his car, and drives away. And I'm just standing there in the driveway, feeling completely sick to my stomach. I'm grossed out, I'm uncomfortable, but honestly also disappointed. Because in that moment, it felt like this person I thought was my friend had suddenly become a stranger. Or maybe it's more like he had been a stranger all along. And for the next few weeks, he absolutely blew up my phone. One day it was, sorry about that, let's just go back to being friends. Then the next day, I don't think I can just be your friend because I like you so much. Then, I can't believe you're not even open to dating me. And eventually, I just blocked him. And a few months after that, I got a job offer, I moved out of my mom's house, and thankfully, I have not heard from him since then. But honestly, even now, when I look back on that interaction, it still deeply unsettles me because it raises so many questions and unfinished thoughts in my head. Like, do some people genuinely believe they can convince someone into romantic feelings through persistence alone? And can men and women genuinely be close, platonic friends, like long-term with no romantic undertones whatsoever? I don't mean like friendly acquaintances. I mean real friendship, emotional closeness, like a best friend level friendship? Or does one person eventually develop feelings more often than we would like to admit? And another thing this experience made me think about is the whole concept of the nice guy. Because I feel like a lot of nice guys are only nice as long as they believe they might eventually get something from you. And the second they realize they won't, that's when the resentment comes out. And I know I'm not the only woman who's experienced this, because I hear versions of this story constantly, where a woman is simply being polite, friendly, a little emotionally open, she's being conversational, and somehow that gets interpreted as romantic interest. And after enough experiences like that, you honestly do start to become more guarded. You stop being as warm to strangers, you overthink friendliness, you hide behind the resting bitch face a little more because it feels safer. And I think this creates a really unfortunate dynamic socially, because the men who ignore boundaries will still approach women no matter what. But the genuinely respectful men, the ones who actually care about making women feel comfortable, are often the exact ones who hesitate to approach at all. So then you end up in this weird situation where the people most willing to cross boundaries are also the most persistent. And honestly, I don't really know what the solution to that is. And the crazy thing is, this wasn't even the last time something like this happened to me. It is literally so exhausting. But a few years later, I had another experience that honestly was maybe more extreme. And this is already getting really long, so I'm going to make a part 2 for that. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Dina, and this is Casually Thriving.